This is Tokyo, the largest city humanity has ever built. 37 million people stacked on a floodplain at the edge of the sea. And this is what everyone expects of its future. The drowned city. Streets turned to rivers, subways filling like bathtubs. The neon going dark under black water. Last August, a suburb on Tokyo's doorstep got a preview. Water erupted from a manhole with enough force to climb past a 5-story building. 8 people died, most of them trapped in their cars. But Tokyo doesn't drown. Not yet. Because while you were watching the water rise in the streets, the city was moving it somewhere you can't see. Look down. 50 meters beneath the suburbs, there is a cathedral of concrete the size of a football pitch, built for one purpose: to swallow the storm. This is the story of how a megacity learned to survive the sky by hollowing out a second city underneath the first. Everything starts with one number: 115 millimeters. That's how much rain fell on Chiba, just east of Tokyo, in a single hour on the night of August 13th, 2026. Roughly a whole normal August, a month of rain, delivered in 60 minutes. For the first time in its history, Japan's weather agency raised its highest alarm over the prefecture. A level 5 emergency warning. The level that means it may already be too late to evacuate safely. Hold on to that number. Because the sky that produced it, here's the physics, because it's simpler and scarier than you'd think. Warm air holds more water. Not a little more, about 7% more for every single degree Celsius the world warms. Heat the planet, and you don't just raise the seas, you load the sky like a sponge. And this isn't a forecast, it's already on the record. Across Japan, the most violent downpours, the ones dropping 50 millimeters of rain an hour or more, have grown about half again as common since the 1970s. And Japan sits in the path of a specific kind of monster. The Japanese have a name for it: Senjo Kosuitai, a linear rain band. Picture a conveyor belt of thunderstorms, each one forming at the same spot and marching across the same narrow line. For hours, the storms move. The line doesn't. So the rain falls on the same neighborhoods, again and again, until the ground gives up. A city's drains are built for an average storm. They are not built for a machine that parks over one street and pours a month of rain through it before dawn. And Tokyo has a second problem. One, it dug for itself. For most of the 20th century, the city pumped up its own groundwater, until the ground itself sank. Parts of eastern Tokyo dropped by as much as 4.5 meters. They stopped the pumping in the 1970s, but the land never came back up. So today, roughly a fifth of central Tokyo, about 124 square kilometers, sits below sea level. 1.5 million people live down in that bowl. When the rain comes, the August flood wasn't a freak. It was a rehearsal. The trailer for a film Tokyo has been dreading for decades. That night, evacuation orders went out to more than 400,000 people. Around 45,000 homes lost power. 7,000 travelers were stranded overnight at Narita, one of the busiest airports on Earth, sleeping on terminal floors while the runways sat underwater. But the numbers aren't the story. The story is a man in his 60s found floating in a flooded road in Ichikawa. A 66-year-old woman killed when her car was swallowed by water in Sakura. Others who simply couldn't get out of their vehicles in time. Ordinary people on an ordinary evening commute who drove into water that was deeper and faster than it looked. The prefecture's governor, a man who had managed disasters for years, said afterward, "I have never experienced a case like this." And here's the uncomfortable part. This was not Japan's worst. The country's record for rain in a single hour is 153 millimeters. In one day during a 2019 typhoon, a town near Tokyo took 922. So let's follow the water. Because a flood doesn't take a city all at once. It takes it in an order, and the order is the cruel part. The rain hits the pavement first. Tokyo's drains are engineered to carry about 50 millimeters of rain an hour. In the busiest districts, they're being upgraded to handle 75. But the August storm delivered 115. When the rain outruns the drains, the water goes looking for the lowest ground it can find. In Tokyo, that low ground has a name, the 0-meter zone. The eastern wards, Koto, Sumida, Edogawa, Katsushika, Adachi, the bowl that sank in the last century. 2.5 million people live across those 5 wards. Then, the water reaches the rivers, the Arakawa, the Edo, the Sumida, the very channels meant to carry it away. If one of the Arakawa's levees ever fails in a great flood, the government's own simulation is brutal. Around 1.5 million people underwater, and in the worst case, roughly 2,000 dead. And then it finds the tunnels. Tokyo's subway is one of the busiest on the planet, and it lives underground, which, in a flood, makes it a network of drains with people inside. A single major breach on the Arakawa could push water into 17 subway lines, 97 stations, and nearly 150 kilometers of tunnel. The water pours down the staircases. The system that moves the city becomes the fastest way to spread the flood beneath it. This is the nightmare Tokyo has been staring at for 50 years. A sinking bowl, filling from above and below, with millions of people at the bottom. So the city made a decision most places never dare to make. An hour north of the city, under an ordinary soccer field in Kasukabe, is one of the strangest structures ever built. The locals call it the Underground Temple. It is a hall the length of 2 football pitches, 177 meters long, 78 wide, its ceiling held up by 59 concrete pillars, each one weighing 500 tons. It is almost always empty. It is almost always dark. This is the heart of the metropolitan area outer underground discharge channel. 6 kilometers of tunnel, 50 meters down, linking 5 colossal silos, each deep enough to stand a Statue of Liberty inside. When the rivers north of Tokyo start to overflow, the water is fed into those silos, roars through the tunnel, and collects in the temple. And then a bank of turbines, the same kind of engines that power jet aircraft, fires it into the Edo River at 200 tons of water every second. It took 14 years to build and cost the equivalent of billions. And most of the 37 million people it protects have no idea it's there. Tokyo's survival isn't a wall you can see. It's a secret, in the dark. The temple is the most spectacular piece, but it isn't alone. Tokyo has quietly buried an entire second city of water. Beneath one of the city's ring roads runs another giant, the Loop Road 7 Reservoir, a tunnel 12.5 meters across that can hold more than 500,000 tons of floodwater and simply keep it there until the danger passes. Along the rivers, engineers have been building superlevees, embankments so wide and gently sloped that water can't breach them. Why would a city go to such lengths? Because it has been burned before. Tokyo's flood engineering was born from catastrophe, typhoons, and river floods across the 20th century that drowned neighborhoods and killed thousands. Each disaster became a blueprint. The city learned, in concrete, that you cannot argue with water, you can only give it somewhere else to go. And this is the genuinely hopeful part of the story. Tokyo proves that a megacity can engineer its way through rain that would erase other cities. The underground temple fires up around 7 times a year, swallowing floods that would otherwise have reached those 2.5 million people in the low wards. By the government's own estimate, it has prevented something like 150 billion yen of flood damage in under 2 decades. And the city is still digging. A new reservoir going in right now will hold nearly 1.5 million more tons of water. Every year it runs, it buys the city more time. But notice the shape of that sentence. It buys time. Not safety. Not forever. Time. Because every one of these defenses was designed against the climate of the last century, and the sky that Tokyo faces now is not the sky those engineers measured. So picture the Tokyo this is all building toward. Late summer, a decade or two from now. You wake before dawn to the sound you've known your whole life. The emergency chime, and a voice on every phone in the ward. Level 5. Once. That word sent people running into the dark. It doesn't anymore. You live above the temple now, in every sense. The streets outside are built to drink, permeable, sloped, threaded with drains that feed the world below. The park at the end of your block isn't a park this morning. It's a basin, filling slowly with brown water, doing exactly what it was designed to do. You make coffee. You watch the flood on your phone the way an older generation watched the tide, a number rising, then holding, then falling. Your grandmother, who remembers the night the water came up the stairs, still can't quite believe it. By the time the children leave for school, the street is merely wet. The basin park will drain by evening. The city held. It is not that the rain got gentler, the rain got worse. It is that Tokyo decided, at enormous cost, to build a place for it, and to make peace with living above a flood it can no longer stop, only manage. But let's be honest about who the city held actually means. In 2019, one of those low eastern wards, Edogawa, home to nearly 700,000 people, printed a new flood map. On the cover, in plain language, it told its own residents the truth. You cannot stay here. In a great flood, almost the entire ward could go under, by up to 10 meters, for a week or more. The official advice was not shelter. The temple protects the many. It does not protect everyone equally. The people reached first by the water are the ones who always are, the elderly, the ones without a car, the ones on the lowest, cheapest ground. August already told us their names. A man in his 60s in a flooded street, a woman trapped in her car. The engineering is a marvel. It is also a bet that the concrete drains faster than the sky fills. And that bet was placed against a climate that no longer exists. Even the people who build these defenses say so plainly. One engineer from the office that guards the Edo River put it in a single sentence. They are always improving the system, but it can't mitigate flood risk completely. Adaptation is not the same as escape. Something is being saved here. Here's what makes this more than a disaster fantasy. Almost none of it is invented. The underground temple is real. You can tour it. The 115 millimeters is real. The 8 people who died are real. The sinking bowl, the 1.5 million people below the sea, the drains built for a storm half the size of the one that came, all of it is measured, not imagined. The only thing this film did was arrange the facts into the future they're pointing at. And the question Tokyo is quietly asking is the question every coastal megacity is about to face. Not whether the rain gets heavier, that's already in the record. And at just 2 more degrees of warming, Japan expects those torrential downpours about half again as often. The question is whether you can dig fast enough and build wide enough to stay ahead of your own sky. Tokyo bought itself time, deeper and more brilliantly than anywhere on Earth. The only thing it can't buy